Few individuals embark on a journey with the intent to dismantle their own existence. Yet, the path to devastation is often laid with subtle, nearly undetectable strides. Unidentified, an unyielding hidden reality exists regarding married women that often eludes the perception of many men. Their vulnerability lies not in weakness or a deficiency of morals, but rather in the undeniable truth that human nature is inherently drawn to temptation. No one rises from slumber one day and declares, "I believe I shall forsake all that I have constructed." Numerical value. In the quietest of moments, during the simplest exchanges, in the subtle glances that linger a heartbeat longer, there lies a shift. Her heart quickens ever so slightly at the sight of a message from someone who is not her husband. This has been a subject of exploration for psychologists over many decades. It is often described as a gradual dissolution of limits, each step taken with deliberation, each thought lingering just a moment longer, until the day arrives when she gazes into the mirror and finds herself a stranger in her own reflection. What makes certain married women so susceptible to temptation? And perhaps most crucially, how do they rationalize it within their own minds? That is precisely what we are on the verge of revealing. Let us commence. First, the silent abyss. The reasons behind why certain married women pursue attention outside their marriage. Great marriages embody the essence of partnership. A truly great marriage must embody the essence of partnership. Helen Mirren. At its finest, marriage is a connection that endures the passage of time, the challenges of life, and the allure of temptation. Yet, not every union endures with the same vigor it once possessed. Some women, even after committing to their vows, discover an allure in the attention that lies beyond the confines of their marriage. Often, it transcends mere physical attraction. It delves into the mind. The most significant error individuals commit is presuming that these women seek an escape. In truth, numerous individuals are merely on a quest to reclaim what they have misplaced throughout their journey. Human beings are inherently designed for connection. Women possess an inherent longing for emotional closeness that transcends mere physical companionship. At the outset of marriage, this closeness is profound. The whispers of the night, the fleeting looks exchanged, the sensation of truly being noticed. It's utterly captivating. Yet, as time passes, the familiar grip of routine begins to assert itself. In an instant, existence takes on a sense of certainty. The profound dialogues gradually shift into practical matters concerning grocery lists and household tasks. Desire yields to obligation. And, most tragically, she begins to sense her own invisibility. Here is where the peril unfolds. Dr. John Gottman, a distinguished psychologist specializing in relationships, reveals that the true threat to partnerships isn't conflict. It is a state of apathy. When a woman feels overlooked by her husband, her subconscious begins to search for affirmation in other places. At times, she remains blissfully unaware. Individuals will go to great lengths to escape the grip of solitude, even if it requires sacrificing their own essence along the way. Mitch Albom, a fleeting yet heartfelt compliment from an unknown passerby, an exchange with a man who truly engages in listening. A fleeting instant in which she rediscovers her intrigue. In an instant, that fleeting exchange transforms into a breath of fresh air after an eternity of constraint. Marriage brings forth a tapestry of responsibilities, a sense of predictability, and the comforting embrace of stability. Yet, The drawback of stability is that it frequently extinguishes the spark of excitement. In the realm of psychology, this phenomenon is referred to as the Coolidge effect, the notion that it is the allure of the new that ignites longing. Individuals, regardless of gender, find themselves captivated by the thrill of the unfamiliar. When a woman has spent years in the embrace of marriage, where each day unfolds in a familiar rhythm and every exchange seems scripted, even the faintest flicker of novelty can ignite a thrilling surge of excitement. Not due to a lack of love for her husband, not due to any inherent flaw in her character. Yet, she longs for the exhilaration of being desired. In the throes of love, we find ourselves truly vibrant, fully awakened to the essence of life. Yet, love transcends mere physical presence. It revolves around the act of being selected, time and time again. F. Scott Fitzgerald. When a woman senses the chase, when she recognizes her influence over a man's longing, it evokes a reflection of herself she believed had faded into the past. The youthful incarnation, the self-assured persona, the one who exuded an air of effortless allure. Thus, even if she has no desire to breach any boundaries, she may find herself treading nearer to them. In those ephemeral instances, she experiences a resurgence of life within her. One often neglected factor contributing to the susceptibility of certain married women to seek external validation is the erosion of their social identity. After marriage, numerous women begin to sense a loss of their individuality. They embody the roles of a wife, a mother, a caretaker for another. Their identity transforms from my essence to how I am perceived by others. Before marriage, she was an enigma, a unique soul, brimming with aspirations, curiosities, and fervor. Upon entering marriage, she finds herself shaped by her various roles: wife, mother, supporter, the one who holds everything in place. Though these roles possess a certain beauty, they may also impose limitations. When a woman begins to lose her sense of self, she may find herself drawn to experiences that allow her to reclaim her individuality, distancing herself from the confines of her role. At times, that connection manifests through the presence of another man. 2. The Game of Justification. The intellect invariably seeks to rationalize the choices that the heart has already embraced. Nameless. It is rare for someone to rise one morning and declare, "I believe today is the day I will betray my marriage." That is not the way it operates. The journey of a married woman venturing into emotionally or physically perilous behavior unfolds gradually, not in a sudden rush. The journey unfolds at a languid pace, marked by a treacherous sheen. A thought that finds its justification in the profound recesses of her mind, well before it takes shape in the tangible world. The reality is that guilt is an insufferable burden. When one manages to persuade themselves that their actions are not truly wrong, they liberate themselves from the burden of guilt. What is the process behind this occurrence? In what ways do married women justify crossing boundaries? Initially, all seems pure and untainted. It's merely a touch of attention. What could possibly go wrong? I am merely engaging in conversation with him. There is nothing amiss with that. It's not as though I'm being unfaithful. I find myself savoring the present. The human brain excels in the art of self-deception. When an experience brings pleasure yet conflicts with deeply held moral beliefs, the mind often conjures justifications to reconcile the disparity. Cognitive dissonance, as psychologists term it, refers to the discomfort that emerges when our actions stand in stark contrast to our beliefs. When the weight of that tension becomes unbearable, the mind twists reality to shield itself. The simplest individual to deceive is oneself. Richard Feynman. Once a paragon of loyalty, a woman now engages in a labyrinth of mental games. She minimizes the significance of her actions. It's merely a playful exchange of affection. It's not as if I would truly take any action. She redirects responsibility. If my husband were more attentive, I wouldn't find myself in this position. She organizes her thoughts into distinct sections. This is unrelated to my marriage. This is merely a distinct matter for my own consideration. However, here's the twist. The more she rationalizes, the farther she will venture. For numerous married women, the initial act of betrayal transcends the physical realm. It stirs deep feelings. This is what renders it perilous. The boundaries are unmistakable when it comes to physical infidelity. Kissing, sleeping with, or intimately touching another man leaves no room for ambiguity. Yet, when it comes to an emotional affair, the lines begin to blur. Messages sent in the quiet hours of the night. Dialogues that delve into realms beyond their intended scope. Confiding in another man about personal struggles rather than turning to her husband. Initially, she reassures herself it's merely emotional. Engaging in conversation poses no risk. Yet, the strength of emotional intimacy is undeniable. When a woman expresses her thoughts, feelings, and innermost reflections to a man, she has begun the process of distancing herself from her husband. Infidelity is not solely defined by physical actions. Once you begin to harbor secrets from your partner, you have undeniably stepped over a boundary. Unfamiliar. Herein lies the true peril. When emotions run deep, the walls that once held us apart begin to crumble. I am entitled to this rationale. The final and most perilous justification is the belief that I am entitled to this. At this juncture, a woman no longer perceives her actions as open to doubt. In her thoughts, their actions are warranted. This marriage has demanded countless sacrifices from me. I am worthy of experiencing joy once more. For years, he has turned a blind eye to my existence. If he shows no concern, what reason do I have to care? For an eternity, I have remained steadfast, yet it seems to have led me to a standstill. What is the purpose? This marks the moment of irrevocable change. At this juncture, the bond she has cultivated with another man resonates more profoundly than the marriage itself. Her thoughts have entirely persuaded her that crossing the boundary is not an act of treachery. It is the embodiment of justice. Once an individual is convinced that their belief is justified, nothing can deter them. The reason married women occasionally become the most vulnerable targets is not due to any weakness of will or lack of morality. The human brain is inherently designed to justify what brings pleasure. It begins with minor excuses, subtle justifications. However, if allowed to fester, those rationalizations can manifest into deeds. Once the line is crossed, there is no turning back. 3. The moment of fracture. The bonds of routine remain unnoticed until they become unbreakable. Samuel Johnson. Each narrative reaches a moment of irrevocable change. A moment arrives when words cease to flow, when playful banter fades into silence, and when excuses no longer hold sway. The game has transcended its playful origins. It transforms into reality. The unsettling truth is that many women remain oblivious to the moment it occurs, often discovering the reality only when it's far too late. In the realm of psychology, one encounters a fascinating concept known as threshold theory. It elucidates the reasons behind individuals who vowed they would never engage in certain actions, ultimately finding themselves doing just that. The most challenging aspect isn't the act itself, but rather the courage to take that initial step. As she types out the message for the first time, a nagging sense of doubt creeps in, whispering that perhaps this is a step she ought to avoid. It was their initial encounter, a simple gathering between friends. In that moment, she senses his hand resting a fraction longer than necessary, yet she remains still, not withdrawing. That is the moment when everything transforms. For once, you've experienced it the first time, the second time unfolds with greater ease. Our repeated actions shape our identity. Aristotle. And before she realizes it, what once seemed taboo begins to feel commonplace. The most significant deception individuals often embrace while traversing a perilous journey. I have the power to cease at my discretion. Yet, is it truly within their grasp? Not quite. For when an emotional response is ignited, it transforms into a compelling addiction. Researchers in neuroscience have discovered that the pathways in the brain activated by romantic and sexual attraction mirror those engaged during drug addiction. The exhilarating surge of a fresh bond envelops her, akin to an unexpected indulgence she never knew she desired. Even as she reassures herself that this will be the final occasion, she seeks a reason to return. It has transcended the presence of the other man. It has become about the emotions that envelop her in his company. Initially, deception seems foreign. It is the inaugural moment she conceals a message. The initial instance she crafts an alibi. In that moment, her heart quickens as her husband inquires, "Who are you texting?" It seems amiss. Yet the human mind possesses an unsettling capacity for adaptation. Eventually, the weight of guilt transforms into a calculated approach. She becomes increasingly adept at concealing her movements. She has mastered the art of compartmentalization to such an extent that guilt has become a distant memory. She begins to embrace the fabrications she has spun for herself. And this is where the descent begins. The more time a secret lingers, the more difficult it becomes to break free from its grasp. She may reassure herself, "I'll bring this to a close next week, next month, before long." Yet, weeks gradually transform into months. By the moment she comprehends that she is ensnared in her own intricate design, the hourglass has run out of sand. Here lies the ultimate transformation that occurs within a woman's psyche when she has ventured beyond her limits. She begins to view her marriage no longer as her foremost connection. Her spouse transforms into the rival. The genuine bond, the true fervor, the authentic closeness. It is unfolding in other places. At this juncture, even if she hasn't tangibly crossed the threshold, her heart is already claimed by another. When that moment arrives, the narrative can conclude in only two distinct ways. She finds herself ensnared. She ultimately departs from her marriage, no longer able to sustain a dual existence. What makes certain married women particularly vulnerable? Because they have no intention of deceiving, they seek to reclaim a feeling that has slipped away from them. And once it is discovered, the act of turning away seems utterly unattainable. Not due to a lack of love for their husbands, but rather because they have persuaded themselves that what they have discovered is an irreplaceable treasure. one that they cannot hope to find within the confines of their own homes. Once that conviction takes root, everything will transform irrevocably. Thus, if you grasp this truth, you possess power, the ability to perceive what eludes the gaze of others, the ability to discern the unspoken truths hidden within the text, the ability to discern the quiet cues before they escalate into something unchangeable. Armed with this understanding, you shall never again find yourself in the shadows of the game. This is a guide to Stoicism. Until we meet again, take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.